But a very clever primitive person figured out that if you hummed when you made an S, it wasn't an S. If you hum when you make an S, you do this. Zzz. A Z is the exact same thing we do with our mouth as an S, except we hum it. They figured out how to make a P. Someone hummed, and rather than P, they ended up with B. A B is the exact same thing you do with your mouth as a P, except you hum it. They figured out how to make an F. Someone hummed, and rather than F, they ended up with V. A V is the exact same thing you do with your mouth as an F, except we hum it. They figured out how to make a T. Someone hummed, and rather than T, they ended up with duh. A D is the exact same thing we do with our mouth as a T, except we hum it. They figured out how to make a K. Someone hummed, and rather than K, they ended up with G. A G is the exact same thing we do with our mouth as a K, except we hum it. I won't go on. This could get boring. You're probably thinking in the dark, could get boring. But I'm trying to show you clever primitive people, by humming half of our sounds, not humming the other, invented almost every consonant we have. 10 sounds into 20 sounds by doing your mouth 10 different ways, except it does leave out the 6 most important sounds in our language, which we've all been taught from kindergarten, are the vowels. A, E, I, O, U, and sometimes Y. But they lied to us. We do not have 6 distinct vowel sounds. We only have 3. Thanks to the laziness of primitive people, they figured out a way of taking only 3 sounds and turning it into our 6 vowels. The 3 distinct vowel sounds we have: an O, a U, and what we call an E. But we don't have 1 E, we have 4. The one we pronounce E, we call it E. Even slow people recognize that's E. But we have 3 other E's. Because primitive people said, what if I said ah and then E? That gave them ah-E. But then they tried it together. If you say ah and E at the same time, you say I. I is half ah, half E. Then they thought, what if I went eh and then E? That gave them eh-E. So they decided to say them together. If you say eh and E at the same time, you say A. A is half eh, half E. And the easiest, of course, is Y. Half wa, half E, Y. So we get 6 vowel sounds for only 3 totally different mouth sounds. O, U, and 4 E's. A, E, I, and Y. That's how we get the sounds, the 26 sounds I've said, that give us basically our language. There is one more interesting thing to say about the sounds before we move on to English, and it is this. Linguists have noticed that although there are hundreds of alphabets created by hundreds of civilizations since Earth began, and even though almost all alphabets have random order, for example, we have D towards the beginning, T towards the end. Many alphabets throughout the world have a T near the top, have a C near the bottom. One sound in alphabets is always in the same place. In 90% of the alphabets, the sound of ah is the first sound. We call it A, the Greeks called it alpha, the Hebrews called it aleph. No matter what you call it, it turns out that ah is always the first symbol. Linguists tried to figure out, why is the sound of ah always at the beginning? 30 years ago, a clever linguist figured it out. In 1965, a linguist said the reason that the sound of ah, which we call A and all the other societies also put at the top, is always in the most important position is because there is something physical that makes us human beings that was as true 250,000 years ago as it is today that gives A its primary importance. What is that thing? Well, the linguist said, we've always, as human beings, had only 2 physical instincts, which are, of course, as surely you know, all humans have the same 2 physical instincts, one for hunger and one for sex. We never confuse them. We always know which one is working on us,